And I have no doubt that that energy that is the enemy feeds on those children. I've got no doubt since the day I found a child tied up in a shed who'd been there 10 years, suffering, entombed in a body with cerebral palsy, staring at the roof, and entombed by the ignorance and the neglect of an alcoholic father and a mother who had just been broken with life. And I liberated him. I took him to hospital. Within a few hours, Africa's deadliest snake nearly bit me. And this is, as the Maasai said, and I believe it, that I took the food of that energy we call Satan, and he was pissed, which is an English way of saying he was angry. So I know he feeds on them. I know he wants them out there suffering. I know he wants them because they're so innocent and pure. It's like getting your hands on an angel itself. But I won't stand for that. And I'm not going to stand for that. And I've been in a battle in prayer with God regarding this. And sometimes when you're in such a state and you're torn, the only way you're ever going to be able to truly hear God is with physical written words. But God, how can God write you a letter?
Give, always give what you can, even if you are lost your lines in the sand. And dig, always dig a little deeper. Sometimes it's hard to be my brother's keeper. Love, so you let love in. Baby, I am home in the wake of your skin. And it's crazy how we wear a ceremony.
Hey guys, so had a really rough week here. To put it bluntly, it's been very rough. We've had a barrage of problems. I've got 3 children in intensive care. It's heavy torrential rains and the 4-wheel drive's off the road, so we can't hardly access anywhere. And I don't want to just share my problems here, by the way. I want to speak about a topic, but let me just tell you what's going on. And we have been handed a closure notice for Angels Gate, the Street Boys. The government have a concept in mind that in reducing the number of centres for street-involved children in the towns, the children will stop being street children. So they're hoping that all the boys in our care will go home, for almost don't have homes or even know where their parents are, etc. So we're fighting it, of course, and we'll see what happens. You never quite know what's official and what's not in a developing country, so we will be updating and seeing what happens with that. It's looking like we'll need to move out of the town to comply with regulations, and thus we'll need to rent another property in the rural area away from the town where we are now. So. On top of all of that, I had a fight with a red-spitting cobra 2 nights ago. If you follow my Facebook, you'll know this because I put a video on. And in my stupidity, during my battle with this red-spitting cobra, my dog was starting a fight with it, and I heard it from inside, went out, found it, reared up to spit in his face. So I covered my eyes and pulled the dog away. Put the dog in the house, and then I said, let me get a little video of this snake because it's like 5 foot long and it's a red spitting cobra. It's an unusual animal. And while I was videoing it, in my ridiculous Western ignorance, it went in my kitchen. So I had to get it out my kitchen with a broomstick, which was fairly frustrating to do and dangerous at the same time. And a security guard came to help me. So eventually, after much commotion, I got this red-spitting cobra to flee after I whacked it on the head a few times after it came up to spit at me, so I kept it. Tanzania sometimes just really knows how to push your buttons. But at the same time, I wanted to speak about I'm having a sense and a struggle in myself. I am human and I have a great deal of pressure and responsibilities on my shoulders. I have an extended family of 60 children directly in my guardianship, over 60. I have 55 dogs who utterly, completely depend on the NGO that I have started and I'm fueling with my interactions with social media. And I also have those children out there. Now, this is what I want to speak about. I have preventative measures, which are the most important things, to stop children spiraling into the circumstances our street boys wound up in. And I have a list of small children I'm going to start working this week on, some as young as 3, who our social work team have put as high risk because they're at risk of things like child labour. I know it sounds crazy for a 3-year-old to be at risk of that, but these are children who have been abandoned by parents, neighbours have taken them in, and this is the risky situation they end up in. And child labour can begin as young as 7 here, so be it labouring in the quarries or in the fields or as a house girl or something like this. So we are tackling this preventative measure, and this is where I'm focusing a lot of our energy at the moment, or shortly, with this new program I'm going to start. However, there are children out there who I can't prevent their circumstances. The only thing I can do is help them. And those are the special needs children, because there are major problems here with special needs children. And I've had stories of children being left in the forest by desperate mothers, I guess, who are starving to death, because this is what happens. There's no support for you. Even if you go to social welfare, they don't have the means to help you. So you can get put in contact with an NGO who might help exercise your child, etc., but they won't give you food. They won't give you support. They won't give you care. So you're then left with your child strapped to your back labouring, or you leave your child unattended in the house. And as you all know recently, a 3-year-old child who is now in our care, whilst left in that situation, was raped by a paedophile, a chance paedophile or whatever out there. And she was raped. And this is the dangers. These are the dangers these children face. I've also had communications about interactions with witch doctors, which are quite dark, which involve killing children, which we're well aware of here anyway. Now, I don't want to get into that doom and gloom spiral of it all. This is a reality of our life, and you know about it. When I speak about it when I have to, because it is an ever-present shadow on our shoulders, and you can't function if you're always speaking about the shadow. That's why people who watch too much mainstream media don't function so great, because they've always got the looming shadow of every crisis on the planet sitting on their shoulder every day. Whereas if you go outside and just walk in the forest or on the beach, then that shadow doesn't particularly exist many places on the planet. So these events are not persistent here, but they do rear their heads. Now, God has placed me in this position where I'm a steward for his resources, a steward for his money, as it were. There's a mosquito in my ear. And also a caregiver, caretaker, a guardian, protector of his children. This is the task he has laid at my feet. Now, I would love nothing more, truly, to be able to fast and pray and meditate and live in a monastery. It would be so peaceful. It would be so wonderful to live that way. Or even to focus on endurance athleticism. That too would be an absolute holiday for myself. I would love that, to progress on my running and to build up to running ultra marathons around the world. I'd be so happy with that. However, this is not the path that I have been chosen for, and thus I do not entertain the ideas of this. Sometimes I do, as you can see from the way I speak about it, but I can't entertain, I want that, I want this, because there's just no way I'll ever have that, because I am a guardian, I am a steward, and God has asked me to be that. I wouldn't go as dramatic as to say it, but it's as if he needs hands and feet on the planet, and thus I offer myself. I'll be your hands and feet on this planet. I'll be your love on this planet. I'll be your caregiver on this planet, because I'm yours. And this is what I offer to God. I do my best to be his hands and feet. I won't say that I am, because that's a very assertive sort of statement, but I'll do my best to be his hands and feet. And whilst he's watching myself in this position and this struggle, because this life is hard, guys. It's hard. There's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of frustration, a lot of desperation in our lives, and raising above that is not always easy. It's an ever-present aspect of it, because everyone around you is so desperate, and then turning to you, it can make you desperate as well. But it can also leave you with many prayers and many frustrations and wants and many doubts in God, which is a very problematic aspect of our human nature, whereas I know God answers prayers. I know God answers my prayers. I know it. Everything around me has been answered prayer. I know he does. But when I ask a prayer, put a prayer out there and it isn't answered quickly, I can still go into a horrendous space of doubting God. This is a massive problem for all of us in our path and walking in a union with God and in service to God. It is, if he answers a prayer today, maybe you go and you see your neighbour, a single mum struggling to pay her bills, and you give her £100 or $100, wherever in the world you are. And the next day, randomly, God returns to you $500, and you say, wow, look at that. But the thing is, the next time you do it, maybe you're struggling, you're waiting 6 months and it doesn't come back to you, but you know he does bring it back to you. You know he does bring it back. But you allow a doubt to rise up in you. And this is because you're fighting in your carnal mind. You know, this is the problem, and I say you need to empty your mind, be silent. You've got to baptize yourself, raise up from the earthly level of consciousness to the water level of consciousness, from beta to alpha, to take no thought for your life, as Jesus said. You have to do it, because inside your thoughts and your thought patterns and your behaviors is where that enemy dwells, that Carl Jung called the shadow, and that the Christians would call Satan, and that the Buddhists would call the demons of the bad spirits and the demons that infect your thoughts. Some just call it negative thinking. Now, even though I am a man who sits inside every day, I wake up in a village that I dreamed should happen and prayed for the resources to do it and received them by the beauty of you guys. And as I say, I've said in a recent video, when I pray, I reach up to this field of self, this ever-present field, and the message goes in there and then it comes back down into other people. This is how I see prayer as a visualization in my mind. It goes up to this ever-present field of self, which is connected to the consciousness of ourselves. That, of course, it's not a physical thing that you go and swim in, but it is a spiritual, metaphysical thing you swim in. And then it sends a message back down through consciousness to those who can help us via synchronicities and moving someone's heart. So God repetitively answers my prayers. But when prayers I ask are slow to manifest, I can sometimes get filled with the anxiety that humans get filled with. I get filled with the concerns, and my main concern is, have I made a mistake? I am the one who's meant to look after these children. Not only these children, but God has tasked me with finding a way to care for these single mothers with the children. There are many lives involved here. Now, I'm not so big-headed as to say, I'm the one who will look after them. This is not what I'm saying, but God has tasked me with creating a structure that at least they have somewhere to turn to, so as children don't have to be left alone whilst single parents are out there. And I know many who would love to come here, and we can't get to them because we don't have space. And if I take in any more children, I run the risk of getting into trouble with the government, because they'll come and say, what quality of life are you having for these children here? So I get annoyed at God, and he knows how I feel, and I have a very good relationship with God in that sense. I can swear my head off at God some days. At the end of the day, he still lets me bask in his love. I'm not saying you should go around just constantly swearing at God, but when I'm finished with my anxiety, my frustration, and I'm venting at him, and I swear, I'm from the northeast of England, my core carnal mind is filled with profanities and swear words. And sometimes when it gets too much, I do, and I let go. But he's still there to hold me at the night when I get still again. But not only that, Today I am having a huge doubt with regards to something in our work and our working lives, and a huge concern. And I want to speak predominantly, for all I've spoke about many things there, how even though I know God answers my prayers, and I've no reason to believe he won't answer this prayer, for all I've seen events going on around me that make me think that perhaps the enemy is trying to delay this prayer being answered, because he knows the longer it's delayed, the more children he has access to. And I have no doubt that that energy that is the enemy feeds on those children. I've got no doubt. Since the day I found a child tied up in a shed who'd been there 10 years, suffering, entombed in a body with cerebral palsy, staring at the roof, and entombed by the ignorance and the neglect of an alcoholic father and a mother who had just been broken with life. And I liberated him. I took him to hospital. Within a few hours, Africa's deadliest snake nearly bit me. And this is, as the Maasai said, and I believe it, that I took the food of that energy we call Satan, and he was pissed, which is the English way of saying he was angry. So I know he feeds on them. I know he wants them out there suffering. I know he wants them because they're so innocent and pure. It's like getting your hands on an angel itself. But I won't stand for that. And I'm not going to stand for that. And I've been in a battle in prayer with God regarding this. And sometimes when you're in such a state and you're torn, the only way you're ever going to be able to truly hear God is with physical written words. But God, how can God write you a letter? Well, God can write you a letter if someone here opens themselves up to be his hands and feet via that level of energy that you call intuition. God can access you and say, please write this and send this. This evening I was in such a state. I was very frustrated, struggling, a bit of anxiety. And somebody wrote me a message saying that they just watched a video of mine and that they wanted to remind me that all of my prayers are heard, and they wanted to remind me that all of my videos are seen. And this was so directly correlated. I've never had a message from this person before. I'll message them back shortly. It was so directly correlated with what I needed to hear, with what I was feeling, but there was no way God could subtly tell me that any other way with words today, because I was just not in that space after the last few days. And he answered me, and I know in my heart, I don't need to believe it, I know that person was God's hand, or hands and feet this evening. I know he embodied their intuition and said, write this. This is what he needs to hear. And he will know it's I who's speaking to him. Because just as he knows when it's I who's speaking to him in the quiet of his meditation, today he can't get quiet. Today there's too much going on. So today I will use you to speak to him. And whether they understood consciously that that's what was happening or just subconsciously, it doesn't matter, because it's what happened. And this is not a one-off. This is a constant thing in my life, and I've seen it over the years. When it's just too much, and I can't hear what he wants, the correct words come from a human being. When I call out about problems with regards to health for myself and others, I'll get a random message from someone saying, hey, I just had a feeling to ask you if you've ever thought about doing this. And I don't always get the reply to these people, but I know that it's God, because they always give me the solution to the thing that's driving me mad that day. And as I say, I would love nothing more than to sit in a monastic life and be at peace and teach and speak my spiritual truths, but this is not what God's asked of me. And thus I cannot, and thus sometimes he sees. And he makes big exceptions for me, I'm sure, but he sees that I cannot sit still. And he sees that I disappear into the events and the thoughts those events must create for us to live in this world. And it's a non-stop barrage and I can't get enough sleep. He sees it and he says, I'm going to bend the rules as much as I can to get this message to him. And he'll do that for you too. He truly will. But I think he only really pushes in that way when it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise he'll ask why you haven't came to him to hear, which is what we should be doing as much as possible. We should come to him to hear what is wanted in discipline and in meditation. But when your discipline and meditation has led you to a calling and then you're just caught in this treadmill of service and attacks from the enemy, as I've described it before, volley after volley, and you've got your shield up and you can't even get your head out to gather a breath, like the last few days have been, then you'll make an exception. And the very core of your heart, the problem you're facing, he writes it word for word through the hand of a human being. But they were his hands and feet this night. And that's the beauty of the relationship we can develop with God. Don't be afraid to give your life to him. Don't be afraid of it. You know, I was a human who believed I needed to have savings accounts and stability and security. But I released it and I put my security in he. And I'm at a strange point in my life as well, as you all have heard recently, where I'm about to be married and have children of my own. And I wonder whether I do a disservice to my children in putting my security in the idea of I need to earn money for them. Because I know that he would provide for them. But there's something very primal in me that tells me that as a man, I should provide for them. So, God can be your everything. Your savings account, your guidance, your sustenance, your water, your breath, your joy. He can be all of it. You've got to trust that he can be all of it. And the problems we face on the planet is many people correlate all of those things instead of in a faith with God with numbers in an account. And this is the dangerous path I'm walking as I'm about to become a married man and a father. But that's another video for another time, I think. But for now, I just wanted to say, even in a time of absolute turmoil, we'll find a way. Find a way to bring you to your knees and to say thank you. As far as I'm concerned, God wrote me a Facebook message today. Might have been a human who wrote it, but it was God coming through then. For it answered exactly what I needed to hear and lifted me out of this downward that I'd managed to think myself into because I hadn't had time to stop thinking, because the event of the physical reality did not allow me physically to sit still. So, God bless. Bye.
Love letters to God. I wonder if she reads them or if they get lost in the stars, stars in the stars.